The whole family got pneumonia before the new year. Everyone, including my 5-year-old brother, took cephalosporin antibiotics, yet on New Year's Eve, Dad opened a bottle of blended liquor. I warned that drinking while on cephalosporin could be fatal, but Dad accused me of cursing the family during the holidays and kicked me instantly. I had no choice but to pour the liquor into my younger brother's chamber pot. When Grandma saw it, she slapped me so hard I saw stars. Saying that bottle of liquor was worth $150, a special New Year's gift from Uncle, Mom and Dad, furious at missing out on good liquor, cursed me as a spendthrift and threw me into the yard. Fists, feet, and blizzard snow alike pounded down on me until I was battered and bleeding, yet their rage remained unquenched. To prove that mixing cephalosporin with alcohol wouldn't instantly kill me, my parents, cheered on by my younger brother's clapping, poured the liquor from the bedpan into my mouth. When the New Year's bell tolled at midnight on my 12th birthday, I took my last breath. When I opened my eyes again, my father was unscrewing the liquor bottle. I drank my dumpling soup expressionlessly, watching as my grandmother dipped her chopsticks in white liquor and let a drop fall into my brother's mouth. The plump white dumplings kept tumbling in the pot as my mother gave me a sharp smack on the back of my head. "What are you spacing out for? Hurry up and scoop them out. Can't even cook dumplings properly, utterly useless." Snapping out of my daze, I glanced at the dining table nearby. A bottle of wine stood on the table, where my father sat caressing the bottle with rare tenderness in his hands. My mother stood behind me, scolding me while noisily fiddling with the strip of cephalosporin pills in her hand, watching as my mom popped out the white pills one by one. Only then did I realize I had been reborn. Suppressing my inner excitement, I picked up the strainer to scoop out the dumplings and swiftly brought them to the table. They had already taken the cephalosporin, and clutching the medicine my mother gave me, I ran back to the kitchen and threw it straight into the earthen stove. Mom craned her neck and shouted at me, "Mia, take your medicine. What are you up to again?" Grandma held my younger brother and impatiently tapped the table. "Don't bother with her. If she won't take it, fine. Useless girl. Better if she dies from sickness. At least it'll save us a couple of mouthfuls of food." I actually eat very little already. My parents usually work in another province with my younger brother, sending Grandma $500 each month. Grandma secretly gives $300 to my uncle, leaving $200 for our living expenses. Every morning, I only eat a small bowl of rice porridge with fermented tofu, then take a corn pancake and 2 slices of pickles to school. Coming home from school, I often filled my stomach with a bowl of cabbage soup just to stave off hunger, and still had to work both inside and outside the house. Now that I'm 12, I only weigh 8 pounds more than my 5-year-old brother, yet despite eating so little, Grandma still thinks I waste rice and oil, finding fault with me everywhere, holding 2 garlic bulbs and a bottle of vinegar. I came out of the kitchen and said to my mother ingratiatingly, "Mom, I've already taken my medicine. I went to get garlic for Dad." Mom rarely gave me a kind look. "Good that you took it. The doctor said pneumonia requires several days of medication. Your brother just got a little better. If you don't recover and end up infecting him, see if I don't beat you to death." At that moment, my dad unscrewed the liquor bottle and placed a small cup in front of my brother. "It's New Year's, son. You should also taste this fine liquor." Grandma listened, dipped the tip of her chopsticks in the liquor, and dabbed it into my younger brother's mouth. My brother, stung by the spiciness, stuck out his tongue repeatedly, then turned and spat a mouthful of saliva onto my face. I didn't say a word, went to wipe my face, and took the opportunity to pour myself a bowl of dumpling broth. By the time I returned, Grandma and Mom had already finished the liquor in front of them. I licked my lips, eyeing my brother's wine with feigned longing. "Dad, can I have a little too?" As expected, my brother immediately gulped down every last drop from his tiny cup. Upon hearing this, choking and coughing from the alcohol, he still managed to kick me hard while mimicking Grandma's tone to scold me. "Stupid girl, you think you deserve it." Grandma lovingly picked up a piece of meat for her eldest grandson, then curled her lip at me. "Exactly, with that shabby look of yours. How dare you drink such expensive wine?" I pressed my lips tightly together, then lifted the bowl of dumpling broth and gulped it down sip by sip, afraid I might accidentally blurt out, "A shabby look is still better than your whole family's dead faces." After scolding me, Grandma went to show off to my dad. "This liquor was a New Year's gift from your eldest brother. There are 2 bottles in total, costing your brother $300. We'll drink 1 bottle tonight for New Year's Eve, and save the other bottle for before you leave on the 8th day of the new year." My dad's face turned slightly red as he nodded in agreement, chewing on a rib with a crunching sound. I thought to myself, "What are you nodding about? You won't live past the 8th day of the Lunar New Year. Today's dumplings at home are vegetarian stuffed, and we made plenty, enough for everyone to eat their fill, but we didn't prepare many dishes, only 4. Braised pork and fried meatballs were placed in front of my younger brother and grandmother. While sweet and sour spare ribs were set before my father, the last dish of smashed cucumber was left on my mom's and my side. I kept silent, lowering my head to eat a leek and egg dumpling. Without glancing at the meat on the table, I just stared longingly at my dad drinking his liquor. Mom pinched my arm hard. You're dying of greed, staring at your dad's liquor like that. How old are you to already crave the good stuff? Out of the whole family, you're the one who knows how to enjoy life the most. My brother burst into tears, flailing his arms. No booze for worthless girls, no booze for worthless girls. Grandma quickly hugged my brother while grabbing my ear and shoving me under the table. You jinx, on New Year's of all days, you had to make your brother cry. I covered my ears, not daring to make a sound. My mother shot me a fierce glare while pouring wine for my father and urged him, don't savor it too much, drink up quickly. Otherwise, Sam will keep crying. His pneumonia cough hasn't fully healed yet. Don't let him cry himself into worse condition. Our family's wine cups were small, and my father, having worked hard all year outside, couldn't bear to buy wine for himself. With my mother urging him on, he began downing cup after cup in quick succession. Mom gave Dad a piece of braised pork. Seeing that Grandma still hadn't managed to calm my younger brother down, she started scolding me again. You're useless, all you know is how to fight with your brother. Let me tell you, your dad has already bought your brother a house in town. After the new year, we won't have spare money to keep sending you to school. You'd better start figuring things out. I didn't argue with her. Obediently, I said, Mom, I didn't want to go to school anyway. Take me with you. I can work. In our village, most children are left behind kids, but it's rare even here to see someone like me who only gets to see their parents once every 2 or 3 years. Mom scoffed at me. With all your crooked ideas, no wonder you're so short. The city doesn't hire child laborers. Someone like you would just be dead weight for our family of 3. So, in their hearts, my brother was their child. They were a family of 3, and I was the outsider. No wonder in my past life, just because I kindly threw them a bottle of liquor, they beat me bloody in a snowstorm until blood gushed from my nose and mouth. Not only that, but they also poured the wine from the chamber pot into my mouth while cursing. Mia, just because you've read a few books in the village, you think you know everything, huh? And you dare say you can't drink alcohol after taking cephalosporin. You're cursing someone to die during the new year. Ruining such an expensive bottle of wine for no reason. I think you're just trying to make trouble for us. You say cephalosporin and alcohol mean instant death. Fine, let's test it today and see if you really drop dead. After they finished pouring alcohol down my throat, they threw me into the yard and went inside. My head was splitting with pain, my whole body burning as if on fire, and I vomited over and over again. I crawled like a dog to bang on the door for help. But they were gathered around the fireplace watching the spring festival gala inside, and not a single one came to check on me. When the New Year's bell tolled, my suffering finally ended. I gasped my last breath, my body buried beneath the snow. The next morning, my mother couldn't push the door open. She stared blankly at the snowdrift in front of her, and only after a long while did it occur to her that I was lying beneath it. I died. Yet my parents felt as if a weight had been lifted. The couple comforted each other, saying, don't be too sad, we haven't treated her poorly all these years. $500 a month is no small sum, we've spent plenty on her. Maybe it's for the best that Mia's gone. From now on, we won't have to worry about this daughter at home and can focus on working hard outside to raise our son. But in reality, how much of that money was truly spent on me, all these years? When have they ever genuinely cared about me, if that's the case? Why should I remind them that mixing alcohol with cephalosporin can be fatal? That's their fate. There's no need for me to risk my life interfering. My dad drank the liquor quickly, and after finishing most of the bottle, his complexion turned very pale. My mom asked him what was wrong. My dad waved his hand. It's nothing, this fine liquor is strong. It's making me feel a bit queasy. Mother looked at him worriedly. Feeling sick? Why don't you go throw up? Grandma slammed her chopsticks down abruptly. Such fine wine and you want to spit it out? Isn't that wasting good stuff? She snatched the wine bottle and carried it to her room like a treasure. Soon after, Mom and younger brother also started feeling unwell, and my mother was the first to vomit. After she finished vomiting, she realized her brother's face had turned blue from holding his breath, and my father had already passed out. My mother was so frightened she burst into tears on the spot. At that moment, my grandmother also started retching and quickly called out to me, "Mia, hurry and find someone to help." I panicked and agreed, throwing on my cotton-padded coat before rushing out. As soon as I pushed open the door, the blizzard descended mercilessly. Just like in my previous life, I trudged slowly to the village clinic, only to find that the young doctor had gone back to town for the new year. I then went to my uncle's house, only to learn that he had gone to his in-laws for a family reunion. Helpless, I trudged back through the snow, knocking on my neighbor's door. Grandma had a terrible reputation in the village, stingy as hell, always scheming to take advantage of others. If it weren't for my neighbor taking pity on me, nearly frozen stiff, no one would have spared a second glance at our house. Following me inside, the neighbor found my brother convulsing and my father unconscious, having soiled himself. All four people on the bed looked half dead, afraid of bringing bad luck during the new year. No one dared to step forward to help. In the end, the village chief was alerted and arranged for a minivan, but the snow was too heavy, and the road conditions were poor. What usually took less than half an hour ended up taking nearly an hour to reach the town health center. The doctor wrinkled his nose at the pungent smell of alcohol on my family members and frowned, asking, did they drink fake liquor? Grandma was drenched in sweat, constantly complaining of thirst. Hearing the doctor's words, she struggled to speak. It's not fake liquor, that liquor was a gift from my eldest son, $150 a bottle. How could it possibly be fake? The doctor sighed. Regardless of whether it's fake or not, this is definitely poisoning. Let's start with stomach pumping. My father was in the worst condition and was the first to be wheeled in. At this moment, my brother vomited again. The doctor went over to examine the vomit, put on gloves, and picked out a small piece of undigested medicine, then asked my mom, "What kind of medicine is this?" My mom's face turned beet red as she rested her head in her hands. "Pneumonia. Took cephalosporin." The doctor froze. "Such a young child took cephalosporin, and you still gave him alcohol." The doctor spoke loudly, and my mother trembled slightly. "It's the new year. Just trying to liven things up." The doctor seemed to recall something. "Did you all take cephalosporin?" Mom nodded. "The whole family has pneumonia." The doctor's face was filled with indescribable frustration. My mother quickly grabbed the doctor's sleeve. "Doctor, did we get poisoned by cephalosporin? I'm going to sue the village doctor. We bought the medicine from him. He must have sold us fake drugs." The doctor ignored her and called me over. "You seem fine. Is it because you didn't drink?" I nodded. "The liquor was too expensive, so they didn't want to waste it on me." The doctor muttered, "Lucky you," threw down his pen, and rushed out the door shouting, "They took cephalosporin with alcohol. Someone come quick and make them vomit first." My mom kept asking if they'd taken counterfeit medicine. The doctor didn't humor her. "If it were fake medicine, you'd all be fine today." My mother was given an emetic and was vomiting violently into a basin. The village chief bustled around, scolding my mother for drinking while taking cephalosporin. My mother looked dazed. "Can't you drink while taking cephalosporin?" I think the village doctor mentioned it once, but none of us took it seriously. Ugh, we'd never heard of such a thing before. At this moment, my father came out of the gastric lavage room, and my brother was wheeled in. My mother thought my father had recovered, but when she rushed over, she saw his face had turned ashen gray. The doctor tossed out a sentence, "Couldn't save him," then hurried off to perform gastric lavage on my brother. When my brother came out, my mother and grandmother had both collapsed. It's unclear whether it was due to poisoning or grief. The doctors worked frantically to resuscitate them, and finally managed to save the lives of Grandma, Mom, and my brother, after receiving 4 fluids. Grandma insisted on going home. First, she was distressed about the hospital expenses, and second, she had to return home to arrange her father's funeral. Upon returning home, Grandma directed everyone to set up the mourning tent. Turning around and entering the house, she saw the remaining liquor and sighed. Wiping her tears, she murmured, "We agreed to drink again on the 8th day of the lunar month. My son has no luck. He won't get to drink it now." She found a large glass jar, poured the unopened bottle of liquor into it, grabbed a handful of wolfberries, and tossed in some random herbs. The herbs were all gathered from the mountains while she was foraging for wild vegetables, dried carefully in the storeroom like treasures. After sealing the glass jar, Grandma tucked the half-empty bottle my father had left into the pocket of my padded coat. "Save this bit of liquor. When it gets cold during the night vigil, let everyone warm up with it. Even though it's left over from your father, it's good liquor. No one should turn their nose up at it." As soon as Grandma finished speaking, the voice of my eldest uncle echoed in the yard, it turned out that my uncle had received the news and braved the wind and snow to return to the village. Grandma seemed to have found her pillar of support. She immediately rushed out and threw herself into my uncle's arms, weeping. After crying, she turned around, grabbed my mother's hair, and started hitting her. "You jinx, you've ruined a perfectly good new year. The doctor said cephalosporin shouldn't be taken with alcohol. Why didn't you stop your husband? You kept urging him to drink glass after glass. I think you wanted to kill my son." With my uncle present, my mom didn't dare fight back much, only arguing verbally. "Mom, I didn't do it on purpose. I took medicine and drank alcohol too. I was poisoned too." Villagers came to break up the fight then. My mom, covered in dust, scrambled up and slapped me twice. "Mia, you went with me to buy the cephalosporin that day. You heard it too. Why didn't you remind me not to drink during dinner? You didn't take a single sip yourself. Were you trying to kill us all?" She hugged her sickly brother again and pointed at me while speaking to him. "Sam, your dad's dead. No one's earning money anymore. No one will buy you Ultraman toys again. We might even have to sell your house in town." Mom was afraid Grandma and Uncle would blame her, so she shifted all the responsibility onto me. Sam, egged on by my mom, had bloodshot eyes. His chubby little body was wrapped in a white morning sash as he charged at me like a piglet. Before he could even touch me, he suddenly collapsed to the ground with a thud. Uncle picked up my younger brother and carried him into the house. A touch revealed he had a fever. My mother started wailing like a slaughtered pig, only to be forcibly dragged out by my aunt. Uncle searched around Grandma's room but couldn't find any fever-reducing medicine, so he decided to go back to his own home to fetch some, but Grandma wouldn't let him. "What medicine? We mustn't take medicine recklessly anymore. Your brother died from taking cephalosporin. Now Sam is the only heir left in our Lincoln family. We can't afford another accident." Uncle nodded repeatedly. "Right, died from taking cephalosporin. Mustn't take medicine recklessly. It's like blaming my dad's death on the cephalosporin, as if that bottle of alcohol had nothing to do with it." Just then, Grandma suddenly noticed the leftover bottle of alcohol in my pocket. She waved me over. "No need for fever reducers. We've got alcohol here. Just rub it on and he'll be fine." I obediently handed over the wine. I didn't remind her that not only can you not drink alcohol after taking cephalosporin, but rubbing alcohol is also not allowed. Besides, this wine wasn't any good to begin with. In my past life, I was forced to drink an entire jug of it and knew it was fake wine bought by my uncle to deceive Grandma. It was made by mixing industrial alcohol. Grandma took off my younger brother's clothes and, together with Uncle, rubbed him down with alcohol 3 times. Then they moved him to the heated brick bed and covered him with 2 thick cotton quilts. Grandma told us all to leave, saying that once Sam sweated it out, his fever would break. I returned to the courtyard and continued kneeling beside Dad's coffin. I don't know how long it had been when suddenly Grandma's scream came from inside the house. "Someone come quick, come see what's wrong with my grandson." I followed the adults running into the house and found my little brother was already dead. His fever had finally broken, but his body had turned ice cold. Everyone shook their heads regretfully, thinking the antibiotics and alcohol poisoning hadn't been fully cleared at the hospital. No one knew my younger brother had been rubbed to death by Grandma's alcohol massage. Soon, another small coffin appeared in the courtyard. Having lost both husband and son in a single day, my mother fainted on the spot. When I woke up again, I was sitting there in a daze, my eyes fixed straight on my father's and brother's coffins. My grandmother and uncle told the mourners that my mother must have gone mad. But after staring at the coffins for a long time, my mother suddenly jumped up. Grandmother was so frightened she fell flat on the ground. I saw my mom rush back into the room, rummaging through the backpack she brought for quite a while before pulling out a large notebook and tucking it into her bosom. Seeing my mom like this, Uncle quickly pulled Grandma into the house and started whispering to her, "Mom, once the funeral is over, you need to kick that mother and daughter pair out immediately. Otherwise, second brother's house will be snatched away by Mia's mom. Those are all things that belong to our Lincoln family. They can't fall into outsiders' hands. At your age, fighting her for the property won't look bad if word gets out. Don't forget, I'm your real son. Once I get that money back, I'll definitely take good care of you. If it ends up in Mia's mother's hands, she'll just take it with her when she remarries." Clearly, Uncle had guessed that what my mother hid in her arms was the deed to the house in town. I stood silently in the dark corner. All these years, Uncle has been taking $300 from my monthly living expenses, and now he's even eyeing the house my father left behind. Looking back, my death in my previous life also had a contribution from my uncle. If he hadn't brought that adulterated liquor, I would at least have had the strength to crawl to a neighbor's house for help. since he's insatiably greedy, then in this lifetime, none of them will escape. In Grandma's heart this lifetime, the most important people are my uncle and my younger brother. Now that her eldest grandson was gone, and with her uncle's instigation, she was at a complete loss. My son, is this really okay? Don't they talk about inheritance rights nowadays? In recent years, legal education teams often visited the village, and as they spoke more about these matters, similar lawsuits became increasingly common. During casual chats over tea or while working in the fields, villagers often gossiped about such topics. Through these conversations, Grandma gradually picked up bits and pieces of knowledge, though her understanding remained superficial. Uncle's eyebrow twitched as he said with great reluctance, "Then transfer Mia's custody to me, I'll raise her." Grandma was shocked. "Are you out of your mind? That wretched girl is nothing but bad luck. She brought death to her father and Sam. What good would raising her do?" Blurting out, Uncle said, "It's just a formal change in paperwork. She'll still live with you. How could she bring bad luck to me?" Grandma froze. Uncle realized he had spoken out of turn and quickly took Grandma's hand to console her. "Mom, you don't understand. Mia is now my brother's only flesh and blood. So everything of his should go to her. Let's secure the money and the house first. Once Mia turns 18, we can marry her off and even get a dowry." Grandma's face remained clouded with worry. "What if Mia's mother disagrees? You originally wanted to adopt Sam, but she kept blocking it, didn't she?" My uncle's family had no children and had always tried to persuade my parents to give my brother to them as their son. They said my parents could always have another child, maybe a son. But my parents didn't agree. Once, they suggested to my uncle that they could give me to him as an adopted child. When my uncle heard this, he scolded my father. "Do you take me for a fool, giving me a girl? What's the use of raising a girl? She'll eat my food and spend my money, only to marry someone else someday, who'll remember to take care of me in my old age. Raising your daughter is worse than raising a pig." But today, in his eyes, I'm suddenly worth more than a pig. Hearing that my mother would likely refuse to let him raise me, Uncle's eyes flashed with a sudden glint of malice. I shuddered. I know my mother doesn't like me. Her heart belongs only to my brother, but now my brother is dead, and after all, she's my birth mother. Staying with her would be better than staying with Uncle. Having made up my mind, I went to find my mother. When I entered, my mother was sitting inside, neither crying nor making a scene. The room was quiet, with only the crackling sound of burning firewood remaining. The moment she saw me, her eyes lit up fiercely as she lunged at me, clawing and hitting. "Mia, you jinx, if you hadn't said you wanted to drink, your brother wouldn't have rushed to gulp down that glass. If you hadn't made him cry, I wouldn't have urged your father to drink so much. Why don't you just die? You're the one who deserves to die young. How dare you make my husband and son take the fall for you?" I struggled with all my might to break free and scratched my mother back in retaliation. I'm not tall enough, so when I scratched her neck, I had to use force, leaving 5 distinct bloody marks clearly visible. After scratching her, my whole body was trembling. My mother touched the marks with her hand, saw blood on her fingers, slapped her thigh, and was about to burst into loud sobs when I said ominously, "Do you realize you're on the brink of death?" I stood before her draped in mourning hemp, thin as a bamboo pole, and my mother was so startled she immediately choked back her sobs. I spoke up right away. "My dad's dead, my brother's dead too. Now, as soon as you die, all the valuables in the house will belong to Uncle." Finally, my mother understood what I meant. "You're saying your uncle wants to kill me, but murder is illegal. Doesn't he know that? Murder is illegal, but suicide isn't. With your husband and son both dead, if you die now, 9.5 out of 10 people would think it's suicide." My mother trembled and shrank back, then suddenly clutched my sleeve tightly, as if afraid someone would snatch me away. "Mia, you're all I have now. From now on, it'll be just the two of us relying on each other. I promise I'll treat you well. They're trying to take advantage of us. I'll give you the house. Please save me." It was the first time my mother had ever said she would treat me well, although I didn't believe it. I still nodded and asked, "Mom, tell me, how did Dad die?" My mother looked puzzled. "Wasn't it because he drank alcohol after taking cephalosporin? We bought the cephalosporin, but what about the alcohol? Who brought it? How do we know if there was anything wrong with that alcohol?" Suddenly, my mother understood. "You mean the alcohol your uncle bought might also have been tampered with? Are you suggesting I sue your uncle?" I nodded. "Mom, you leave tonight. Go to the town to report the case, demand a forensic examination to investigate Dad's cause of death. If you don't go, just wait to be buried with Dad." In the end, my mom was afraid of death. she didn't have time to grieve for Dad and my brother anymore. Putting on her thickest clothes and stuffing 2 steamed buns into her pocket, she sneaked out of the village under the cover of night. The next day, the family couldn't find my mom. Uncle and aunt were secretly gloating, while Grandma sat cursing in front of my father's coffin. Damn her, her husband hasn't even been buried yet, and she's already run off with another man. Couldn't she wait? Someone sensed something was off and warned my uncle. The moment her husband and son died, she vanished. Could she really have been involved? Shouldn't we report this to the police? My uncle sat at the banquet table, tore off a roasted chicken leg, stuffed it into his mouth, and shook his head like a rattle drum. Let's not think of people as that bad. She's a widow now, and our Lincoln family can't keep her even if we wanted to. She'll leave sooner or later. Let her go. Just don't let it delay my brother's peaceful burial. I cried so hard that my snot almost froze on my face. I slowly moved to my uncle's side, poured myself a cup of hot water to warm my hands, and asked, "Uncle, I have no father, no mother, and no brother left. You and Auntie are my closest family now. From now on, can Grandma and I live and eat at your place?" Uncle, who was just yesterday scheming to take me away from my mom to fight over property, suddenly changed his expression. He tossed the chicken bones to the dogs, picking his teeth as he spoke. "You and your grandma have been doing just fine living together all these years, haven't you? My place is small too, no need to crowd together. From now on, whenever we cook something good at my house, I'll definitely call you and your grandma over to eat. Don't worry, you won't go hungry." I sneered from the bottom of my heart. Thanks to him, I never had enough to eat even when my father was alive, let alone now that he's gone. Clearly, with my father dead and my mother gone, my uncle thought my family's property was already within his grasp. So there was no need to fight for custody of me. I didn't say anything more. The neighbors around us shook their heads and sighed, whispering that my uncle was cold-hearted and wouldn't care whether I lived or died. Grandma cried and cursed at the same time. After most of the day had passed, she had cursed every ancestor in my mother's family for 8 generations straight. She herself was nearly out of breath, her voice hoarse from all the shouting. As dusk fell, Grandma couldn't hold on any longer and finally decided to go back inside. Meanwhile, the banquet tables were replenished with new dishes, steaming hot pork stewed with vermicelli being served. Someone asked if there was any alcohol. For once, Grandma was generous and arranged for the freshly brewed liquor to be brought out to help everyone ward off the cold. After just a few bites, headlights suddenly lit up on the village road. It was my mother bringing the police. The police wanted to take away my father's and younger brother's bodies, but my uncle stopped them, saying the funeral would be held the next day. He offered cigarettes to the police. "It's freezing cold out here. Our villagers dug this grave pit for 3 whole days, just waiting for the burial tomorrow. Can't you make an exception?" The officer didn't accept the offered cigarette. "We're handling an official case. No exceptions can be made." The uncle grew displeased. "The deceased are my brother and nephew. As the head of the family now, you can't just take them away." The officer remained calm. "The deceased's wife has already filed a report. We must conduct an autopsy to determine the cause of death." When Grandma heard about the autopsy, she resisted fiercely, saying it would damage the body and delay reincarnation. Even if reincarnation were possible, he'd be born disabled in the next life, never whole again. But they couldn't out-argue the police. Within half an hour, the officers bowed to my father, then carried the body away in their vehicle. The police also asked Grandma for the liquor Uncle had bought, saying they needed it for lab tests. Grandma pointed to the large glass jar. "My son drank some of it, and the rest was used to rub on my grandson's body. This is the original unopened bottle. I soaked it with herbs to help everyone ward off the cold." A policeman picked up the glass jar and examined it, then suddenly asked, "Who drank from this?" 2 neighbors stepped forward, saying each had drunk a small cup. The policeman's face changed. "Get in the car quickly and come with us to the hospital. The wine was soaked with aconite. It's poisonous." The 2 neighbors immediately jumped into the car. Before driving off, the policeman told my uncle that he couldn't leave the village casually and must be ready to cooperate with the investigation at any time. After the car turned around and left, the villagers asked Grandma why she had soaked poisonous wine. Grandma was dazed and confused. How could it be poisonous? They were all picked from the mountain. They said it could be used as medicine. Isn't medicine supposed to cure illnesses? How could it be poisonous? Everyone was disheartened and didn't dare stay for dinner at our house anymore. They all went back to their own homes to celebrate the new year peacefully. The courtyard suddenly became empty. Grandma started crying again and hit my mom with a broom. Her hoarse voice, strained from crying, croaked out curses like a duck's quack. you worthless wretch, weren't you running away? Why crawl back here to die? Fine if you came back to die alone, but you dared bring the police. Now look, your husband and son won't even have whole corpses left, and you've turned the whole village against us. What exactly did you tell the police? Why are they investigating that wine? And why won't they let your eldest brother leave the village? Your husband died because of you and that damned girl. What does your eldest brother have to do with it? Seeing my uncle glaring at her with murderous eyes, my mother cowered and pointed at me, stammering. It was Mia. She said there was something wrong with the wine, that her uncle was trying to harm me. She's the one who told me to report it. In the end, my mother chose to betray me for her own sake. Upon hearing this, my uncle stepped forward intending to kick me. I pointed at him and shouted, "Don't you dare touch me, right now, you're a suspect. If anything happens to me, you'll be looking at an extra 10 to 8 years in prison." This threat successfully intimidated both my uncle and grandmother, especially my uncle. His head nearly drooped to his feet, after Dad and my younger brother's bodies were taken away. The morning shed and dining tables in the yard were all removed. At night, my mother was afraid my uncle might kill her, so she squeezed onto the small Kong with me to sleep. None of us said a word, dozing off until dawn. The police returned. They also brought back the 2 villagers who had drunk the poisoned wine. Fortunately, they were discovered early and treated, so they were out of danger, but Grandma still compensated them with 2 bags of beans as medical expenses. She was stingy her whole life, and those 2 bags of beans pained her so much she kept twitching. The autopsy results for my dad and my brother came out too. Their poisoning wasn't just from mixing cephalosporin with alcohol, it was also from industrial-grade alcohol. My brother could have survived, but Grandma didn't give him fever medicine and instead rubbed him with alcohol 3 times, plus covered him with 2 quilts on a heated bed. All these factors together ultimately took his little life. Grandma wailed loudly, rolling on the floor of the main room as she cried, saying she had harmed her eldest grandson, yet she never mentioned Uncle's fault. In the end, the police still took my uncle away. Uncle confessed very quickly. At first, I didn't intend to buy fake alcohol, but before the new year, my grandma mentioned during our chat, "Your second brother is tight on money lately and can only give me $200 each month from now on. So Mom won't be able to support you anymore." My uncle had been taking advantage of the situation for years and had grown accustomed to it. Now, realizing he'd be short $300 every month, it felt like cutting flesh from his bones. In a fit of anger, he bought cheap counterfeit alcohol as a New Year's gift. He said he knew the old lady would never drink that wine. It was just to make her happy for the moment. But I don't believe it's that simple. Because after Grandma told Uncle she wouldn't give him any more money, he asked me, "Mia, did you secretly tell your mom that Grandma gave me money, so your mom got upset?" I shook my head. "Uncle, I've never mentioned this. It seems Dad ran out of money after buying a house for my brother in town, so he couldn't give as much for living expenses." My uncle's hands trembled. "Your dad bought a house in town." His expression at that moment was as if someone had snatched his house away. I told all this to the police, along with mentioning how my uncle had always wanted my younger brother to be his son, so, the police re-interrogated my uncle. In the end, my uncle told the truth. He was jealous that my father had both a son and a house, and knowing full well that the alcohol he sent would inevitably end up in my father's stomach, he deliberately provided 2 bottles of industrially blended liquor, intending to ruin my father's health. His plan was to then pressure my father into adopting me out to him, after which he would gradually seize control of our family home, but he never anticipated that my father had taken cephalosporin antibiotics, and with the blizzard delaying medical treatment, my father died outright. My uncle's verdict came swiftly. He was sentenced to 8 years. On the day the notice arrived, my aunt immediately sold their house, took the money, and fled back to her parents' home. Our once large family was left shattered, with only my grandmother, my mother, and me remaining. Grandma didn't let my mom go work in another province again. She sold our old house in the village, and the 3 of us moved together to a house in town. I know she hates my mom and me. She never understood. My dad and brother are already dead, and the dead can't come back to life, so why did we have to drag my uncle into it? So she had to follow us. None of us were going to live happily. I went back to school. My mom found some piecework in town, the kind you could bring home. Grandma watched her work every day, afraid she'd go out looking for another man. I don't know when it started, but Grandma suddenly began trying hard to please me. Every day she would prepare special meals for me, milk and eggs for breakfast, while she and my mother had thin rice porridge with fermented red bean curd. The lunch table usually had 1 small plate of meat dishes, one large plate of vegetables, plus a side dish of pickles. I would eat the entire plate of meat and half the vegetables, and only then would they share what remained. For a while, I even suspected Grandma might poison the food, so during that time, I didn't dare eat properly. Luckily, having gone hungry for over a decade, I could handle it just fine. Since Mom's earnings barely covered the mortgage, Grandma was the one footing most of our daily expenses. But Grandma only had the money from selling her old house. Village houses aren't worth much, and hers was particularly run down, fetching just $5,000. At this rate of spending, it wouldn't last long. Later, I found out Grandma went out every day to collect cardboard to sell for money. For a moment, I was genuinely moved, until one day, I accidentally overheard her chatting with another elderly woman. Grandma said, "How could I possibly like a granddaughter, if my grandson were gone? I'd think about him every single day. What would I do if the longing became unbearable? The only way is to treat the granddaughter as if she were my grandson, watching her eat and drink, imagining it's going into my grandson's mouth. Only then can I feel a little better. If it were just about her, I wouldn't spare her a single glance." From that moment on, my heart never stirred again. At the same time, I knew that since Grandma saw me as Sam, she would never poison my food. Even though Grandma didn't truly care for me, under her care, I grew taller, put on some weight, and my skin even became fairer. Other than studying, I rarely think about anything else, so my grades have always been excellent. Every time Grandma sees my awards, she strokes them for a long time, sometimes saying, "If Sam were still here, he would definitely be doing even better than you." In her heart, Sam will always be better than me, just like when Sam was still alive, he was as fat as a pig. But Grandma thought he looked handsome, while saying I was as skinny and ugly as a monkey. Every time Sam is mentioned, Grandma always cries. After crying, she points at my mother's hard-working figure and talks to me. "Grandma actually stopped wanting to live long ago, but I had to make sure your mother paid off the mortgage on this house. My eldest grandson is gone, and I couldn't let my granddaughter shoulder a mortgage at such a young age. Mia, remember this, you must hold on to this house." At times like these, I would smile and hug her, saying, "Grandma, you're so kind," but deep down, I knew she didn't truly love me or care for my well-being. She was only grieving over the meager family assets my father had worked so hard to accumulate all those years, just feeling sorry for this house that once had Sam listed as its owner. After graduating from middle school, I was admitted to the county's top high school. I moved into the school dormitory and barely spent a few days at home each year. At the beginning of the second semester of my senior year, my uncle died in prison. Upon hearing the news of Uncle's death, Grandma developed a fever that very night. Over the years, my mom and Grandma have been acting as if possessed, not only refusing to drink alcohol but also avoiding medicine even when sick. But this time, Grandma's fever was too severe. My mom called me, saying Grandma might not make it. When I got home, I tried to give Grandma fever-reducing medicine. Grandma still refused. She told my mom to fetch a shaman instead. The town's shaman is 82 years old, Wendy, and walks with shaky steps. It said she can communicate with spirits and cure strange illnesses. Old Lady Wendy entered the house, observed for a long while, and said, "She's being haunted by her son and grandson." My mother took out $100, burned a yellow talisman into ashes, and had Grandma drink it. Old Lady Wendy said that if the fever hadn't gone down in an hour, she'd rub alcohol on her. Upon hearing this, Grandma shook her head firmly. Taking medicine, drinking alcohol, or rubbing alcohol, all were things she feared most. By dawn, Grandma had passed away after all. When the town funeral home's car took Grandma away, I was packing up her belongings and asked my mom, "You did it on purpose, you deliberately told Grandma about Uncle's death, didn't you?" My mom looked grim. "Yes, I've had enough." I knew my mom wished for Grandma's death every day, but in this life, she became more timid than in her previous one, so she didn't dare to harm Grandma. In her past life, she and my father killed me without any fear. Perhaps she believed that since she gave birth to me, she had the right to decide my life and death. But in this lifetime, she personally reported the crime and successfully sent my uncle to prison. She learned about something called the law, understanding that debts must be repaid and murderers must pay with their lives. So, even if she hated Grandma to the core, there was little she could do about it. It wasn't until Uncle passed away that she knew her opportunity had come. Mom's calculation wasn't wrong. Though my uncle was in prison, he was Grandma's only remaining hope. With that hope severed, Grandma surely couldn't go on living. After Grandma was cremated, We took her ashes back to the village. Uncle's grave mound was still fresh, buried with the help of villagers, right next to my father's grave mound. Beside my father's grave, there was also a small mound where my younger brother Sam was buried. This reminded me of my past life. After I died, Grandma said minors couldn't be buried in the ancestral grave, since they didn't want to pay for cremation either. They simply threw me into the mountain ravine. Yet Sam was also underage, but he got a proper grave mound. So you see, rules are made by people. They can be changed however one pleases. I buried Grandma next to Grandpa and Cout a few times. After coming down the mountain, I went straight back to the county town. While my mother returned to the town, she was extremely thin, her footsteps so light it seemed she might float away. I suddenly have a bad feeling. Sure enough, during the May Day holiday, my mother called the school. Her voice was almost gone, coughing incessantly. Mia, Mom has pneumonia. Come home and take care of me for a few days. I said I couldn't take time off because I was preparing for the college entrance exams. After a pause, she whispered, come home and see me. I might not have much time left. My heart suddenly clenched. I'm not feeling sorry for her. I heard despair in her tone, just like the despair I felt in my past life before leaving this world. After careful consideration, I still went to ask the teacher for leave. The teacher told me to come back quickly and even stuffed a few boxes of cooling water into my bag. Lately, there's been a lot of stomach flu going around causing diarrhea. If you start feeling unwell, drink some of this right away. When I got home late at night, my mom was lying in bed. Strangely, she had cephalosporin antibiotics and cough medicine by her pillow. She had become even thinner, practically skin and bones. I poured her a glass of water and asked, since when did you start taking medicine? My mother screamed hoarsely, she's too sick. She won't make it without medication. I placed my bag on the living room table and turned to wash up. When I came out, I found my mother in the living room with several sheets of paper on the table. Mia, sign this agreement and transfer the house to me. When my father passed away, my grandmother forced my mother to transfer the house to me. Now that my grandmother has died, my mother wants the house back. She lied to me. It turns out she didn't want to say goodbye to me on her deathbed. She wanted to start a beautiful life for herself. I didn't move. Mom, do you remember what you said the day Dad died, when Uncle tried to harm you and I told you to report it? Back then, my mother said, Mia, you're all I have now. From now on, it's just the two of us relying on each other. I promise to treat you well. I'll give you the house. Just save me. Now that it's all in the past, she's lived so many extra years and wants to renege on her debt. My mother waved her hand dismissively. Don't talk nonsense. All these years I've supported your education, fed and clothed you. I've already repaid my debt to you. Besides, your claim that your uncle wanted to harm me was just your word against his. Maybe you were lying to me all along. None of you Lincolns are any good, she coughed dryly, if you don't sign. Don't even think about going back to school or taking the college entrance exam. She locked the front door from the inside and hid the key. My home is on the 5th floor with security bars on the windows, and even if there weren't any, I wouldn't dare to jump. I had an old-fashioned phone that could only make calls but couldn't access the internet, and while I was washing up, my mom took it away too. My mom started crying bitterly, lamenting her hardships. It's all your fault. You made your dad and brother drink so much, and it killed them, and you made me call the police, which made your grandmother hate me and torment me endlessly. My whole life has been ruined because of you. I worked hard all my life to save up for this house, and in the end, it's still registered under your name. Why? She said she originally didn't want to take medicine for this pneumonia, but when her fever nearly made her pass out, she suddenly wasn't afraid of taking medicine anymore. At worst, it's just death. Taking cephalosporin might let me live. I can't let you off that easy. She glared at me like I was her enemy. You're nothing but an ungrateful wretch. You knew your grandmother subsidized your uncle every month but never told us, so she knew everything. She knew Grandma and I only spent $200 a month, knew I ate rice porridge with fermented tofu, knew why I never grew tall, but she never confronted my uncle about it. She could only save money on me. When she couldn't cut back on living expenses any further, she made me drop out of school. Mia, don't look at me like that. I've already done more than enough as your mother. I didn't marry you off to just anyone and even let you go to school. You should be grateful. Throughout the whole time, my mother kept talking to herself. Listening to her gave me a headache, and my stomach churned. I ran to the bathroom and threw up. Later, I pulled it again. I touched my head again and felt like I had a slight fever. I opened my backpack, took out cooling water and drank it, then tore up the agreement and locked myself in the small room. after sleeping through the night, I felt much better. While making breakfast early in the morning, I noticed my mom going in and out of the bathroom several times. She had diarrhea but was afraid to go to the hospital, worried I might take the chance to run away. Seeing me drink cooling water again, my mom came over for a look and asked me once more, "You really aren't planning to give me the house? Aren't you going to take the college entrance exam?" I nodded. "I'm not taking the exam." My mom panicked. "How can you not take it? You've studied for so many years. Isn't it all for getting into college?" I looked at her. "It doesn't matter. Seeing how you are, you probably won't last much longer. Once I've waited you out, I can repeat a year and still take the college entrance exam. After graduating, I'll find a good man to marry and have kids. If I have a daughter, I'll treat her extra specially well." My mom was so angry she nearly gritted her teeth to dust. "You're wishing for my death. Dream on." I refused to die. I ignored her, went back to my room, locked the door, and started reading. I kept reading until I got hungry and realized it was already 2 p.m. I pushed the door to go to the kitchen but found it wouldn't budge. Something was blocking the door from the outside. I pushed hard. It was Mom. She lay sprawled on the ground in front of the cabin door, her hands clutching the doorframe as if she had been knocking, but she had already stopped breathing. I'd been wearing headphones listening to English, so I didn't hear her knocking on the door. I stood frozen for a long moment. This scene looked exactly like how I died outside the door in my past life. Stepping over her body, I noticed on the living room table that she had tampered with my 2 boxes of cooling water, probably seeing how quickly I recovered after drinking it. Mom overdosed by drinking 2 doses, but she took cephalosporin. You shouldn't drink cooling water with cephalosporin. She avoided mixing cephalosporin with alcohol, yet ultimately couldn't escape this final fate. After a simple funeral, I returned to school to continue my studies. During the college entrance exam, I performed exceptionally well and was admitted to a top-tier university, becoming the first student from my county's high school to achieve such a feat. The county widely publicized my story, and many people, upon learning about my experiences and that I was an orphan, were moved to tears. I received donations from all directions, but I didn't touch that money. With the help of the county government, I established a foundation for left-behind children and invested all the donations received into it. I believe that with the foundation's assistance, more and more girls like me will be able to leave the mountains and have their own piece of blue sky. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. I worked tirelessly to earn money, only to end up with terminal cancer, barely hanging on for a short while before I died. Before I died, my husband held me and wailed bitterly, "Darling, how can I and our daughter survive without you?" Yet, within just 3 months, he married a new wife. The day before the wedding, he sent our daughter to relatives in the countryside, wiping his tears as he said, "Sweetheart, don't blame Daddy. Daddy just wants to start a new life." He drove away without looking back, his daughter running after him in tears, and even when she fell hard to the ground, he didn't stop to glance her way. I am filled with regret. I was completely wrong. No amount of money earned is worth more than living well and giving my daughter a home. Frank's second marriage was very low-key. Apart from getting the marriage certificate, they only had a meal with relatives from both families and didn't even post about it on social media. After all, his first wife had passed away less than 3 months ago, but privately, he was quite extravagant. He proposed with that "one love for life" diamond ring and added his new bride's name to the deed of the house I left behind. They even sent Doris to relatives in the countryside. Not even grandma's house was an option, because the new bride was pregnant, and the ex-mother-in-law had to take care of her, leaving no time for her granddaughter. I know the phrase, "the tea cools once the guest leaves." And I was mentally prepared for it, but I never expected it to cool so quickly, so heartlessly. After I left, my parents voluntarily gave up their inheritance rights to ease Frank's financial burden, asking only that he raise Doris well. As it turned out, all of this only gave him more resources to start his so-called new life. Watching Doris cry for her mommy and daddy in the countryside, my resentment grew stronger day by day. Finally, one day, the heavens heard my grievances and sent me back to 1 year before my death. The moment I opened my eyes, my sweet, soft daughter threw herself into my arms. "Mom, you're finally awake." My daughter looked at me with concern, her grape-like eyes filled with sorrow. I remembered her expression when Frank sent her to the countryside. "Daddy, don't you want me anymore?" Frank fled in panic. I struggled to prop myself up. "Mom's fine. Don't worry, Doris." At this point, the physical pain had become quite severe, but I still chose to ignore it at the time. To strive for the year-end bonus, I didn't dare to take leave and instead worked overtime every day. This time, it was sudden stomach cramps in the morning, so intense that even painkillers couldn't suppress them, and I fainted right at home. I got up to help Doris change her clothes and had a quick breakfast, kiss her little cheek. Don't worry, Doris. Mommy will try her best to stay healthy and grow up with you. After dropping her off at kindergarten, I took a taxi straight to the hospital and, without hesitation, got every possible test done. The crucial gastroscopy was scheduled for a week later. In the meantime, when a client called, I politely told them I was at the hospital and asked them to find someone else for business discussions. Life is almost gone. Money is just worldly possessions, and keeping it would only allow men to spend it on themselves. Unfortunately, I realized this truth a bit too late. In the evening, after picking up Doris and arriving home, I had just finished cooking dinner when Frank returned. It had only been a little over 3 months since I last saw him, yet it felt like a lifetime. No, it truly was a lifetime apart. He finished washing his hands and eagerly approached me. Honey, you've worked hard, let me serve the dishes. Suddenly, I recalled how he behaved at the wedding banquet, just as eager, raising his glass to the bride's parents. Mom and Dad, you've worked hard. From now on, we're family. I coldly moved away. Doris, dinner's ready. At the dinner table, Frank picked up a green vegetable for Doris. Maca. Here comes something green and healthy. Doris, gobble it up quickly. Doris giggled, opening her mouth wide to eat the greens, nodding happily. Daddy, I want more. Watching their affectionate interaction, the image of Doris falling and crying while chasing after the car flashed before my eyes again. My heart felt like it was being tugged by a rubber band, tightening and loosening unpredictably, making me lose my appetite completely. You two enjoy your meals slowly. Mommy's going to lie down for a bit. I walked slowly into the room, leaving the cheerful laughter of the father and daughter behind me. A completely different Frank. Which one is the real one? Julia, Mom said she wants to come stay for a few days. She misses Doris. If you have time, maybe take her to the hospital too. Frank came from a single-parent family, and the money for his college education was painstakingly saved by his grandmother. Relatives at home occasionally remind him to be filial to his mother. Indeed, he does just that. He agrees to every request his mother makes. As my mother-in-law grows older, she constantly suspects she has serious illnesses and insists on going to the hospital for checkups every few days. I accompany her almost every time. There are many new tasks lately, and I really can't take time off. Honey, I'm counting on you. Same old excuses as always. It suddenly occurred to me, the trending term these days, outsourcing filial piety. Frank, I'm afraid I don't have time. Work's been hectic lately, and I haven't been feeling well. He froze momentarily. This is the first time I've refused him. Previously, considering he's a civil servant while my job is more flexible, everything concerning the family, both the elderly and the children, fell on me. Can she accompany her for local checkups? My mother-in-law also has a daughter who married locally and lives very close to her mother. It's hard to say this. In my hometown, sons are supposed to take care of elderly parents. He hesitated, a flicker of dissatisfaction crossing his eyes. People already criticize me behind my back because my mom doesn't live with us. Now if you refuse to accompany her to the hospital, I don't have time. You could take leave too. With the economy being bad, bosses are monitoring attendance now. I can't be as flexible as before. He grew impatient. After all this talk, you still don't treat my mother as your own and show her filial respect. I shut my mouth, too exhausted to argue with him. We both turned over simultaneously to sleep. Back to back, I edged closer to the side of the bed, wanting to avoid any contact with him. I'm quite puzzled. Such a filial son who wouldn't even take leave when his mother was ill, yet he could stay with me in the hospital during my final days in my past life. Could his love for me have been that deep? I immediately dismissed the thought. How much true affection could a man who remarried so quickly have had for me? When I woke up in the morning, Frank had already prepared breakfast, and Doris was all ready to go to school. He handed me a bowl of millet porridge with a smile. Honey, drink more, it's good for your stomach. It seemed he had already forgotten about last night's argument. I took the bowl, accepting his apology in a way. Frank's good temper was one of the reasons I chose him in the first place. Every time we argue, even if we don't reach an agreement, he'll calm his temper and coax me. Honey, for the sake of this bowl of porridge, could you pick up Mom from the train station tonight? I have an unavoidable dinner with friends, please. I froze, not having time to react yet. Sweetie, finished eating. Daddy will take you to school today. he hurriedly took Doris out the door. I knew that in his heart, this matter was already tacitly assumed to have my agreement. Given my temperament, I couldn't bear to ignore my mother-in-law once she arrived. As long as he kept claiming he couldn't get time off, in the end, the task of accompanying her to appointments would still fall on me. Having experienced life and death once, I've come to understand some things more clearly. Between him and me, all he conceded was his attitude, while I was the actual fool making compromises. My mother-in-law is the kind of person who speaks softly and is extremely polite. She thanked me several times in the car, saying, "Frank has really good taste, marrying such a wonderful wife like you. You always arrange everything perfectly when accompanying me to the hospital, and you ask the doctors all the right questions in great detail." Julia, I'm sorry to trouble you again. I felt too embarrassed to speak after what she said. I'm sorry, Mom, but Frank will have to accompany you this time. Our company has been very strict with attendance lately, and I can't sneak away. My mother-in-law paused at my words, and after a long silence, she softly replied, "Oh, all right then." After getting home, I picked up Doris from the neighbor's house. "Mom, Doris seems to have a slight fever. Please keep an eye on her." After settling my mother-in-law, I hurriedly took Doris to the hospital. While accompanying my daughter during her 4-drip, I finally found time to buy a cold rice ball for dinner. As my stomach ached faintly, I suddenly realized I was living the same life as before, busy and relentless. Treating myself as less than human, I picked up the phone and called Frank. "Doris is sick. Come to the hospital and help me. I have a stomachache and can't hold on any longer." It was noisy on his end, with chaotic voices of men and women. "Honey, I'm tied up and can't leave. Can you hold on a bit longer? You can rest well tonight, and I'll take care of Doris." He then hung up the phone without asking another word about our daughter's condition. Actually, I knew that Frank's so-called dinner gathering was just drinking and bragging with a bunch of his buddies. Although he's an enviable civil servant who secured a stable job, his department has little extra income, earning only 1/3 of my monthly salary. Because of this, he often jokes self-deprecatingly, "I may have a prestigious title, but you're the real breadwinner in the family. I'm practically living off you." To ease his mind, I not only handed over my salary card for him to manage but also took on most of the household chores, giving him both the money and time to socialize freely outside. Over time, I became the family's main support. While he gradually faded into the background, I sighed, vaguely understanding why he was in such a hurry to remarry. This overgrown child I had nurtured had long lost the courage and ability to independently shoulder family responsibilities. It was already midnight when we returned from the hospital, yet my mother-in-law was still awake. Frank drank too much and kept insisting on getting up to take care of Doris. "Julia, you should rest early." "I'll take care of Doris." I shook my head. "No need. Doris is used to me accompanying her when she's sick. You go and rest." My mother-in-law didn't argue with me. After hesitating for a moment, she said, "Frank is so drunk, maybe you should accompany me to the hospital tomorrow." So that was the real reason she was waiting for me. My heart sank. "I can't easily take time off work. You'd better ask Frank." Her face darkened, and she silently returned to her room, just like her son. She didn't ask a single question about Doris's condition. I couldn't help but wonder if her constant claims of missing Doris were just as insincere as her son's. It wasn't until 5 in the morning that Doris's fever finally broke. I could finally close my eyes for a while. "There's a regular meeting this afternoon that I can't miss." I hadn't expected to sleep for just a short while before the door was banged loudly. "Julia, get up. You need to accompany Mom to the hospital today." I couldn't even open my eyes, pulling the blanket over my head, wanting to ignore everything. The door was opened, footsteps approached the bed, and someone forcefully yanked the blanket off me. The curtains were also drawn wide open, and the midsummer sunlight shone directly on my face, making me quickly cover my eyes. Doris was woken up by the noise and probably still didn't feel well. She started crying. I quickly stood up and hugged her, then coldly said to Frank, "Get out." Frank had been grinning shamelessly with a hint of amusement, but now his expression twisted into anger. He pointed at me and snapped, "Julia, what kind of attitude is that?" I didn't even glance at him. "Sweetheart, don't cry. You don't have to go to school today. Later, Mom will take you to Grandma's house. She'll make you her famous big wontons." Doris stopped crying and smiled instantly. She loves my mom's big wontons more than anything. I helped Doris change her clothes, and we both freshened up quickly. Frank probably noticed the fever patch on Doris's head and remembered what happened last night, standing silently nearby without daring to make a sound. Seeing that I was about to leave, He humbly grabbed my sleeve and said, "Honey, why not have some breakfast before you go? Mom has already made it." My mother-in-law stood quietly at the bedroom door and cautiously said, "I forgot to remind Frank this morning that Doris was sick." I didn't even glance at her and walked straight out the door. With Doris, I stayed at my parents' house for a few nights until the day of the gastroscopy. Frank called me several times, but I didn't answer. He texted me saying his mother's checkup showed no issues, and he'd already sent her home, asking when I'd be back. Every time it's the same outcome, and then after a month or two, it happens all over again. Is she here for a medical checkup or to spy on my life with Frank? The gastroscopy was scheduled for 8 a.m., and my younger brother accompanied me, perhaps because we're twins. In my heart, he's the person I trust and rely on most in this world. He never really liked Frank. Thinking he was too pragmatic and hypocritical, I never agreed with this point and joked with him, saying, "Little brother, you're a genius from the gifted youth program, never worrying about making a living. Frank and I are just ordinary people among the masses, so naturally, we live more pragmatically." Looking back now, one of the benefits of high intelligence is seeing through appearances to grasp the essence. He had long recognized Frank's cold-blooded ruthlessness. It was just me, caught in the middle, unwilling to believe it. Before going in for the checkup, I tugged at his sleeve and said, "I have a feeling the results won't be good. Whatever you do, don't tell Mom and Dad. Let's figure it out ourselves." My little brother looked at me in shock and nodded firmly. "Sis, don't worry, I'll be here with you every step of the way. You just focus on getting better." Without prior agreement, we all excluded Frank. When I woke up, my younger brother was by my side, helping me up. His eyes were slightly moist. "The doctor said it doesn't look good, but we'll have to wait for the biopsy results. Let's prepare for hospitalization first, and don't think about anything else." After leaving the hospital, I went home alone. Frank came home from work, and I got straight to the point. "I might have cancer, with a probability of over 80%. He froze completely, then nervously grabbed my hand. "Don't scare me, Did the hospital tests show something wrong?" I nodded slowly. "There's something in my stomach, not good. We'll know more after the biopsy report." Frank's eyes turned red. "Honey, don't be afraid. If you're sick, we'll treat it. Don't worry about money. If we don't have enough, I can borrow some. It's not that bad. The money in my salary card is enough to cover the treatment costs." "The money in your salary card?" Frank looked stunned, as if he hadn't processed it yet. I asked him in return, "Where is my salary card? You said you were better at managing finances than me, so I gave it to you, keeping only some living expenses each month. Over the years, there should be around $1 million in it." He swallowed unconsciously. It's there. Don't worry, the medical expenses are covered. I'll make some calls to see who has hospital connections and if they can recommend a specialist." He hurriedly ran to the balcony, smoking cigarette after cigarette, dialing one number after another. In my past life, he did the exact same thing, calling every friend he knew to find me a better doctor. At the time, I was quite moved, thinking he truly cared for me, but this time, his expression just now left me a bit puzzled, so I quietly walked over to the window near the balcony. "Mom, Julia is sick and urgently needs money. Hurry up and give me back that card." "What? My salary card is with my mother-in-law. This didn't happen in my previous life, or did he give it to her without me knowing?" Early the next morning, he simply said his mother wasn't feeling well and hurried home. I didn't press further and quickly went to the bank. Funny to say, despite all the talk of past lives and present ones, this was my first time checking the transaction details on my salary card. Usually, Frank had me turn off the bank notifications, saying it wasn't worth wasting those few dozen dollars. "I won't touch this money, it's for Doris's education. If there's really any emergency, I'll definitely discuss it with you first, honey." Previous records were all normal. The monthly $3,000 living allowance for my mother-in-law was deducted from my card, which I had agreed to. Frank said his income was all spent on household expenses, so I casually agreed, thinking that since we're family, it doesn't matter which card the money comes from. But just a few days ago, a transaction of $300,000 was made from the card. He didn't mention a word to me about what this large sum of money was for. After some thought, I changed the withdrawal password for the bank card but left everything else untouched. I'm curious to see if he can get the money back when he returns today. When Frank handed the card back to me, I stared into his eyes and asked, "Where did you get this card back from? Has the money inside been used?" He tilted his head slightly, avoiding my gaze. "Got it from Mom. Transferred her $300,000 these past few days." He lowered his voice. "You know how it is. Mom's always felt insecure without a partner and with her son not around. She doesn't have much savings. The other day, when you were cold toward her, she couldn't sleep at night, worried we might not support her later, so, I scoffed. Frank, whose fault is it that your mom doesn't live with us? Back then when we asked her to help with postpartum care, she said her health wasn't good enough to stay up late. Later when we invited her to help take care of Doris, she came for 3 days and left, saying she hadn't looked after a baby in years and wasn't good at it anymore. From birth until now, Doris has been raised with my parents' help. I know your mom just doesn't want to tire herself out, I understand. And I'm not forcing anything. All these years, I've never held it against her. Instead, I've been a dutiful daughter-in-law alongside you, sending $3,000 monthly support, fulfilling nearly every request whenever she visits. Just this once when I couldn't take leave to accompany her to the hospital, she has to make such a fuss about taking my salary card and withdrawing $300,000 for retirement, clearly trying to put me in my place while scheming for my savings. Frank. Do you take me for a fool? Frank sprang to his feet with a start. What do you mean? What kind of person do you think my mom is? This money is fixed-term savings I helped her deposit. I absolutely won't touch it. When you took my salary card back then, you also said you'd never use it without my permission. I screamed these words hoarsely, tears uncontrollably streaming down my face. Frank took a deep breath, irritably running his fingers through his hair. Stop losing your temper. You're sick, yet you can't even control your emotions. Consider this money as borrowed from you. I'll pay you back later. Fine. I wiped away my tears and hoarsely made my demand. Write me an IOU. Fine, Grandma, I'll write it. Seeing how relentless I was, he snatched up the pen resentfully and wrote it out in one go. Here you go. He had already composed himself and spoke to me with a grin. The IOU was folded into a heart shape, cradled in his palm as he handed it to me. Following our usual routine, I should have taken the opportunity to back down and let this storm pass, but this time, I wanted to push my luck. Frank, I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to answer me honestly. If I were seriously ill, would you take care of me? And if I died, would you remarry? He seemed startled, his eyes turning red. Honey, don't say things like that. It scares me. Without you, how could Doris and I go on living? I repeated the question. If you did remarry, would you abandon Doris? I didn't dare blink, afraid I might miss even the slightest change in his expression. He forced out a smile and patted my head. Don't overthink it. Doris only has you as her mother, and there's only one Julia in this world. But his eyes were evasive, unwilling to meet mine. He was guilty. 3 days later, I received all the reports and hospitalization notices. Frank and his younger brother rushed me to the hospital, his hands trembling as he confirmed the surgical plan with the doctor. I asked my parents to take Doris away and look after her, so I wouldn't have any worries. I'll ask my boss for leave. If he doesn't approve, I'll quit. I nodded. Sure, it's not like we're making much money anyway. He stood there dumbfounded for a long time before stammering. You won't be able to work later either, so I need a stable job, right? I scoffed inwardly. Both Frank and my mother-in-law took pride in him being a civil servant, and deep down, they looked down on my job, yet in reality, they couldn't do without the money I earned. They really wanted to have their cake and eat it too. The surgery was scheduled for the 3rd day, with many tests lined up beforehand. I hired a caregiver to accompany me, while Frank only took leave on the day of the surgery. I suddenly recalled the final days of my past life. He stayed by my side every day, tending to my needs, cleaning me, feeding me, refusing to let caregivers intervene. Over those months, both of us grew noticeably thinner. I was sick, and he was exhausted. In that past life, his transition from deep affection to utter indifference took less than 3 months. I'm really curious about how this life of mine will unfold. Only after being separated by life and death did I realize I'd never truly understood him. The results weren't great, but not terrible either. It's still in the early stages, but the subtype isn't favorable, the kind that tends to recur. I had mentally prepared myself long ago, so I wasn't too devastated. My parents and younger brother couldn't accept it and were wiping away tears nearby. Frank cried even harder than any of them, which made my parents end up comforting him instead. Frank, we're truly sorry. Julia will be relying on you from now on. If there's anything we can do to help, just say the word. We'll do our best. Don't worry about Doris, we'll take care of her. As for Julia, please take good care of her. Frank covered his face and vowed earnestly, I will. So he stayed with me for just one night before leaving on a business trip. His reasoning was solid. Julia, from now on, I'll be the one supporting our family. I have no choice in this. Besides, there are nurses, and your brother and parents can help. I was taken aback. Was it because I wasn't going to die so quickly this time that he felt he could just leave me like this? But with the abdominal wound, I had to lie flat, and my back was in excruciating pain. I simply didn't have the energy to argue with him. The father who came to take over shift even advised me, given the current situation, he can't manage both sides, try to be understanding. Seeing how much Dad was considering Frank's feelings, a sudden thought crossed my mind. Dad, if I were to die, would you and Mom give up inheriting my estate and leave it all to Frank? Dad glared at me and gave my head a light pat. Don't talk nonsense. The doctor said if you cooperate well with the upcoming chemotherapy, there's a high chance it won't recur. I pursed my lips downward. Dad, life has its ups and downs. Birth, aging, sickness, and death. Don't avoid the topic. I just want to know what you think. Dad, don't look away. Help me pull the blanket higher. Your mom and I have pensions. Your younger brother earns well and is just as filial as you. How could we possibly care about your money? As long as Frank treats you and Doris well, we don't need anything. His words were filled with unmistakable sadness, and my eyes grew moist too. But I must make plans for Doris's future. I told him seriously, Dad, if, heaven forbid, that day ever comes, you and Mom mustn't give up what's rightfully yours, even Doris's share. I'll entrust to you. Dad was somewhat surprised. You don't trust Frank, did you? Find out something. Suppressing the pain in my heart, I forced a bitter smile. No, it's just that people's hearts are hard to predict. He can't stay loyal to me forever. I'm just afraid that with a stepmother comes a stepfather. Dad fell into thought. In the afternoon, my younger brother came to see me, and I entrusted him with a task. I bought critical illness insurance, which should pay out around $300,000 to $400,000. When you have time, help me handle this. Frank has been too busy lately, so I won't trouble him with it. My younger brother glanced at me silently and said, Got it, sis. I always felt like he saw through something, yet he never mentioned anything. I shooed Mom, Dad, and my brother back home. There are too many germs in the hospital. If any of you get sick, who's going to help me take care of Doris? There are nurses here, don't worry. Late at night when all was quiet, my back hurt so much I couldn't sleep, and I could only occasionally lift my body slightly to relieve the pain. For some reason, I remembered how in my past life I had been just as miserable, and Frank had stayed with me all night without sleeping, massaging my back from time to time. The aunt in the next bed said enviously, You've really found yourself a good husband. Look at me, I don't even have anyone to stay with me at night. After a few days, not only did my fellow patients and family members think highly of him, but even the doctors and nurses responsible for me would joke. Bed 23, for the sake of such a good husband, you've got to keep fighting. Frank's consecutive leave requests also alerted the leadership at his workplace. The leader came to visit me once, an elegant middle-aged woman, with gentle eyes. She listened as everyone praised her subordinate. This young man has been truly devoted to caring for his wife. These days, that's quite rare. By then, my condition was deteriorating rapidly. In the final stages of my illness, I could only extend my skeletal hand and plead with her, if Frank's work suffers because he's taking care of me, please, for the sake of someone who's dying, give him another chance. She patted me and said, Don't worry, he's so kind and loyal. We won't make things difficult for him. True to her word, Frank took leave until my passing, accompanying me wholeheartedly every day. Tonight's moonlight is clear and bright, allowing me to see the sleeping face of the patient next to me, but the person who stayed by my side in my past life has long since vanished. With a soft sigh, I forced myself to close my eyes and rest. I drifted off to sleep and had a dream where Frank was on the phone. Mom, I can't hold on much longer. Frank must have been talking to his mother-in-law. He was lying on the sofa at home. Probably his younger brother had swapped shifts with him to let him rest a bit. No one was home, so he had the speakerphone on. Mom, you have no idea how annoying Julia is. 1 minute she's complaining about pain here, the next minute she's uncomfortable there. I even have to help her with toileting. It's disgusting. There are caregivers available, yet I still have to personally attend to her. When will this nightmare ever end? The disgust in his voice was palpable. My heart ached at his words. I could only console myself with the thought that prolonged illness tests even the most filial of children, let alone spouses who were merely fair-weather partners. He took care of me for so long. Losing patience is only human. Son, just hang in there a little longer. Judging by Julia's condition, she won't last much longer. Right now, your in-laws and your boss all think you're an exceptional man. Don't let all your efforts go to waste. Most importantly, remember to complain about money whenever you go to pay the hospital fees in front of your father-in-law. He probably doesn't know Julia has insurance. And one more thing, if the doctors ask, insist on using the best medication, make sure they believe you'd go bankrupt for Julia without hesitation. Don't worry about the cost. Compared to this multi-million-dollar house and the family's wealth, it's just pocket change. You've done enough for Doris. They surely wouldn't have the nerve to fight you over the inheritance, especially since they have a son to rely on. My heart sank to the depths of the ocean. Everything he did was actually a scheme to get his hands on my money. By the way, you mentioned last time that your boss has a daughter who's divorced and still single. Make sure to stay visible in front of your boss. Once Julia passes away, you can find an opportunity to get to know her. You're handsome and have a great job. She'd definitely be interested. Then, shed a few more tears for Julia, and she'll surely think you're a good man. Frank's mother-in-law arranged everything meticulously for him. It suddenly dawned on me that the bride's mother was actually Frank's boss. He actually succeeded in pursuing her. The genuine love I cherished before my death in my previous life turned out to be completely fake. It was a well-orchestrated play directed by my mother-in-law, with her son delivering a passionate performance, and indeed, it was remarkably successful. My parents gave up their inheritance, and he married the boss's daughter. In my dream, I was absolutely furious. Dawn broke, and I opened my eyes. I've made up my mind. Once I recover, I'm getting a divorce. This lifetime's illness is much milder than the last. I was discharged after just 1 week in the hospital. On the day of my discharge, Frank didn't show up either. He said he was still out of town and couldn't make it back. The doctor has designed a chemotherapy plan for me. I only need to come in once a month. My younger brother took me home, and I didn't let him leave. Little brother, I have something to discuss with you. I want a divorce. Do you think it's okay? My younger brother calmly asked me, why? I remained silent for a long time before saying, ask him, do you believe in past lives and future lives? He paused slightly. I know there are still many unsolved mysteries in this world, but they've actually happened. Sis, if you're saying this, something must have occurred. I told him everything exactly as it happened. My younger brother furrowed his brows tightly, thought for a moment, and said, sis, based on what you've said, I suggest you don't rush into divorce right now. If you divorce now, you're sick and unable to work. Frank would have some competitiveness if he wanted to fight for Doris. As for the house and assets, it should probably be split 50-50. Doris, he won't argue with me. The house, indeed, that's a big issue. Frank's family wasn't well off. The money for college was borrowed, after working for several years. All his earnings went to paying off debts, leaving little savings. His parents thought he was academically excellent, honest, and filial, and didn't mind his family's poverty. The down payment for the house we got married in was given by my parents, and both our names were on the deed. Consider it an investment in a high-quality stock, ensuring my daughter's future security. That's what I used to think too. Now I realize I've been feeding an ungrateful wolf. Should I just keep waiting like this? What if my younger brother shook his head, sis. If this dream is real, and you can't earn money anymore, you'll be holding him back. There's a 90% chance he'll look elsewhere. When that time comes, gather evidence and confront him. If he stays loyal and takes good care of you, then the dream is false, and you shouldn't abandon your family over baseless illusions. I smiled bitterly. Look at him. He hasn't come home yet, and there's only been a call or two. How could this dream possibly be fake? But I agree with your suggestion. The house our parents paid for can't just be handed to him for free. I'll take it step by step and fight for the best possible outcome. After returning from his business trip, Frank showered me with warm greetings. Honey, I actually ran into an old high school classmate during my trip. She's also in B City and doing really well. She even started her own company. She helped me pick out a gift for you, he said, pulling out a designer silk scarf. Looks nice, doesn't it? She's such a strong woman with great taste. He couldn't stop praising his classmate, visibly excited. I have a strange feeling that he must have some special thoughts about this old classmate. I gave a few perfunctory replies. Frank, I want to discuss something with you. You're so busy with work, and I feel bored staying home alone. I miss Doris too. How about I go back home for a while? Sure, he agreed immediately. I was actually worried I wouldn't be able to take good care of you. Stay at your parents' place and rest well. I'll come visit you and our daughter whenever I have time. I moved back to my parents' house, and the security cameras at home were still on. At first, Frank would still come to visit Doris and me every now and then. When he didn't come, he would order takeout after work or eat at the office before coming home, and video chat with me along the way. The rest of the time, he would lie on the sofa playing with his phone or watching TV. Gradually, he came home later and later, and even when he was at home, he would smile like a flower while staring at his phone, but not because he was communicating with me. His visits became fewer and farther between, with most of his concern expressed through just a phone call or video chat. Even on the days of my chemotherapy, he kept making excuses, and in the end, it was my family who accompanied me. It wasn't until I noticed he hadn't come home for several days in a row, yet his suitcase for business trips was still at home, that I realized something was wrong. I realized there was a high probability he was cheating. The next steps were simple: just hire a private investigator to get plenty of photos, even if they weren't explicit bedroom shots. Seeing him intimately entering hotels with that woman made it clear they weren't just friends. I felt a sense of relief. Like that shoe upstairs that had been dangling forever finally hit the floor, when my younger brother presented me with two possibilities. Although I was convinced it was the first one, deep down I still held onto a sliver of hope, that everything in my dream was just my wild imagination, and Frank was simply a genuinely good man. Now, my heart has died too, but before I could gather all the evidence to confront him, Frank reached out to me on WeChat. Julia, now that you've been discharged from the hospital, can you give me back the salary card? The funds inside are about to mature, and I need to invest in new ones. I smiled and leisurely took a photo of the IOU for $300,000. You pay me back this money first, otherwise how could I dare to hand my salary card over to you again? Frank replied immediately, honey, the money won't disappear just because it's with my mom. Let her keep it for peace of mind a little longer. I'll ask her for it later. Okay. I didn't bother arguing with him further. If you want my salary card, get the money back first, otherwise, I don't trust you. After saying that, I ignored him. Not long after, $300,000 was deposited into my account. When he asked for my card again, I played dead and didn't respond. He cursed a few times but seemed to give up eventually, and never contacted me again after that. A month later, Frank suddenly showed up at my parents' house, eagerly offering to accompany me to the hospital for follow-up appointments and chemotherapy. Not a word about the salary card. Honey, when are you coming home? Without you and Doris, the house feels so cold and empty. On the way, he actually suggested that I bring our daughter home. That's strange. I thought during this period of Cold War, we both tacitly understood that our days together were numbered. I'm waiting for the right moment to bring up divorce. What's his situation? Curious. I took Doris back home for a visit. When I opened the door, my mother-in-law was sitting there calmly and said with a smile, Julia, Doris, you're back. Mom said that since you've been sick, your parents have been taking care of you, and she hasn't been able to help. My mother-in-law looked embarrassed. Julia, your parents have worked hard. Move back in, and I'll take care of you from now on. Interesting. I smiled. Mom, then I'll have to trouble you. My mother-in-law nodded slightly with a gentle smile. Early the next morning, my mother-in-law knocked on the door, waking both Doris and me. Julia, I made some porridge. You two should get up early and eat. Doris and I yawned. Mom, it's the weekend today. My mother-in-law suddenly realized. My bad, I got the dates mixed up, but the porridge is already cooked. Maybe you should still get up and eat. Doris refused, crying and wanting to sleep more. I woke up but couldn't fall back asleep. So I simply got up, stepping outside. Frank's door was still tightly shut. Seems my mother-in-law only remembered to wake me, not her own son. Looking at the table, there was congee all right, just not the kind I could eat. It was century egg and pork congee, the peppery aroma hitting me the moment I approached. There were still fried dough sticks on the table, which I couldn't eat either. I couldn't help but laugh in frustration. Mom, I remember telling you last night that I have dietary restrictions. I can't have pepper or fried dough sticks. My mother-in-law apologized, saying, oh dear, look at my memory. She lowered her head and began wiping away tears. Before long, Frank came out of the room with a frown. Mom, what's wrong? Then he turned to me. Mom went out of her way to make breakfast for you and Doris. How could you make her cry? I hadn't even said anything yet, and here they were putting on this act together. I couldn't be bothered with them, so I went to the kitchen and made myself something to eat. Just as I brought it to the table, Frank suddenly flew into a rage. With a forceful swipe, he sent my plate crashing to the floor. Eat, eat, eat. You haven't even apologized to my mom yet. What are you eating? My mother-in-law shrank back timidly, murmuring, it's all my fault. My memory is bad. I'm the one who owes Julia an apology. Frank's temper flared even hotter. He glared at me, raising his hand as if ready to strike. Suddenly, I burst into laughter, loud and unrestrained. Frank, save your energy. Aren't you afraid that if this slap lands, I'll report you for domestic violence? Your job might not survive the fallout. He froze momentarily, his eyes involuntarily darting toward his mother. She lowered her head, and her sobbing ceased abruptly. Frank pointed his finger at me and said, "Julia, I'm warning you. My mom worked hard to raise me, not to be treated like this. If you dare to disrespect my mom, we're getting divorced." I struggled to suppress my laughter as I pulled out a chair and sat down. "Frank, have you studied marriage law? Do you know that courts don't grant divorces when one spouse is sick? So you're using your mom to create conflict and force me to file for divorce?" Frank's voice softened. "What nonsense are you talking about? I'm just angry that you don't respect my mom. When did I ever say I wanted a divorce? If you don't divorce, won't your old classmate be anxious? You've already accompanied her to the gynecology department. If this drags on any longer, the baby will be born." His face turned pale instantly. "Julia, how did you know I went?" My mother-in-law stopped him. "Julia, you've misunderstood. That girl's parents are old friends of mine, and they asked me to look after her. She wasn't feeling well a few days ago, so I had Frank accompany her to the hospital. It's all my fault for meddling." I cut her off. "Enough, stop pretending. I know everything." My mother-in-law immediately fell silent. "I know you're eager to get divorced and afraid I'll drag my feet. Mom, you had to step in personally to play the villainous mother-in-law. Fine, if you want a divorce, Doris, the house and savings all go to me. If you agree, we'll handle the paperwork today." His face suddenly flushed red again. "In your dreams. Frank, do you know what kind of man your boss despises most? Do you know why her daughter got divorced? I heard there's a promotion opportunity coming up, and it's between two candidates. Should I hand over all the evidence to her and let you be the one left behind? Think it over carefully." Frank lowered his head dejectedly, and his mother-in-law didn't dare say anything more. I caught them off guard. It wasn't until I received the photos yesterday that I realized my old classmate was already pregnant. When she went to the hospital to register, Frank's name was listed as the father. As for the promotion opportunity, I knew about it in my previous life, but they didn't end up choosing him. But it doesn't stop me from using it to threaten him, with everything perfectly aligned in their favor. The mother and son still dreamed of taking the initiative. What a pipe dream. A month later, I smoothly obtained all the assets and custody rights, even forcing Frank to pay the child support in one lump sum. Frank and his old classmate soon got their marriage certificate. However, his new wife was no pushover and pressured Frank into throwing an extravagant wedding. Now everyone in their department knew that Frank had cheated on me while I was sick and even had a child. Rumor has it that his standing with the leadership plummeted, and he was eventually transferred to a marginal department with no future prospects. My former mother-in-law was also ordered to stay in B City because the new wife was busy running her business and needed help taking care of the child. Even with a nanny or housekeeper, she wasn't at ease and insisted that her mother-in-law take full responsibility. As a result, whenever the child had the slightest bump or bruise, or if childcare didn't go exactly as she wanted, she would unleash a torrent of criticism at her mother-in-law. Living under such constant high pressure, it wasn't long before the mother-in-law fell seriously ill. Many of Frank's former colleagues kept in touch with me, and these details were gradually shared with me over time. They say that woman divorced her ex-husband because he couldn't have children. Now she's had a baby with Frank, but she's still keeping in touch with her ex. I also ran into Frank once at Doris's kindergarten gate. His hair had thinned considerably, his back was hunched, and he looked completely drained of energy. He just watched his daughter from afar, without approaching. I wonder what was going through his mind at that moment, whether he regretted it, having schemed so much only to end up not living his ideal life after all. But whatever he thinks, it's long had nothing to do with me. I just want to live healthily and accompany Doris as she grows up. After hearing the two stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.